Welcome back to News Talk. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's administration has helped broker changes to the proposed Pepco-Exelon merger, changes that she now says make the proposal a win for the city. But resistance remains. We'll get Councilman Grasso's thoughts in a moment, but first, the latest from our reporter, Jay Korf.
City leaders gathered en masse Tuesday for a major announcement. A deal was struck that resurrects Pepco's merger with Exelon, a utility giant that generates and distributes power. Keep in mind, the Public Service Commission rejected the merger in August, saying it would not be in the public's best interest. But city officials spent weeks negotiating what they believe is a much better deal for consumers.
As you know, regardless of the merger, Pepco would seek to increase rates for consumers.
But Mayor Muriel Bowser says Exelon has agreed to invest $78 million in the district that will do a number of things, like making sure there is no rate increase until 2019, while they improve reliability throughout the system and promote environmental sustainability.
We believe we've got a good deal that does look out for the ratepayers on day one, with an immediate credit that's going to ratepayers, and of course forbearance from rate increases for at least 3 years.
Vocal merger opponent Councilmember Mary Che hopes ratepayers are not fooled by Exelon's short-term promises.
They have put a little dress on this deal, okay, and it's fancy and it looks nice, but in a couple of years then you'll see the reality of what this deal means to us, and it's not good.
What's that reality you think is good?
The reality is rate increases and frustration of our progressive policies in on the environment.
Jay Korf for News Channel 8.
Jay, we thank you so much. Councilman David Grasso remains with us, and we're going to get his thoughts in a moment. I do want to say, though, that Councilwoman Mary Che and Jim Diniger, the head of the Greater Washington Board of Trade, are going to debate the merger here next week, I think it's Wednesday, so do stick around for that. I think that's going to be a very substantive and interesting discussion. Should be. Your thoughts? Does the new and improved Pepco-Exelon merger draw your support?
Well, you know that I wrote a letter in opposition to the merger to the Public Service Commission about 4 months ago, and I was actually very pleased that through that process they came to the conclusion that we shouldn't embrace this merger here in the District of Columbia. And I had two main points I made in my letter. One was, you know, they are not a distributor of electricity. They are a generator of electricity at Exelon. And so they have these big nuclear power plants that are going to have to be decommissioned by federal law very soon. I'm very nervous that our rates are going to go through the roof, not in 2 years or 5 years.
Because that could be expensive.
It's going to be very expensive to decommission these, and they're nowhere near here, but they're out there that we would have some responsibility with that.
Even though the local utility customers have not benefited 1 kilowatt of electricity from those plants.
Right, nor would we have, right? I mean, we don't use that much, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is we have a question here about environmental friendliness. The District of Columbia embraces the environmental changes that we need to do in alternative energies, cleaning the environment, and all of those things that we work on so hard every single day, whether it be wind or solar. And Exelon has a track record of not embracing those kinds of technologies, and in fact, at times lobbying against those directly. So does the mayor's plan now, the kind of deal that she's cut with Exelon, make me feel more at ease? I'm not sure it does. I feel like there's still a question that needs to be answered. And frankly speaking, I appreciate the process that the PSC went through. They went through a deliberate, mandated process with public engagement and public involvement that I supported, and I didn't even have an opinion until after the evidentiary hearings, because I too benefited from that. And then to go kind of almost behind closed doors and say, you know, we're going to now come out with this settlement agreement, it just doesn't seem right.
So it sounds like you've got more reading to do and more discernment before you come out firmly yes or no, but we hear your comments at least so far.
Yeah, that's right, Bruce. And I'm right now very skeptical. There is a lot of money here involved, and I know it's a very big deal, so I don't want to be disrespectful of that. But at the same time, I got to remember that the people of DC is who I serve.
Procedurally, this is this merger agreement would cover a large geographic area, and they've gotten a green light in other places where the regulators have considered this and then offered an opinion. It was green light, green light, green light until it got to the district. Procedurally, what happens if the PSC says no again?
I think that's a good question, and pretty much an open question that they haven't answered yet, because they went right into the negotiations with the mayor's folks. So I think it's going to be hard for them to complete this deal without the District of Columbia on a national scale with all these other states. But they could just cut us out. But, you know, in the end, what does that leave us? Does that leave us with a kind of crippled Pepco, or does that leave us with an opportunity maybe to create a public utility in the District of Columbia, which we haven't debated in years, and maybe it's something we should consider since we are such a small jurisdiction and we're moving towards alternative forms of generation. Maybe there's another opportunity there in this very difficult, I think, complex situation.
Very interesting. Before we let you go, can you talk about the vote on the emergency ambulance plan that the fire chief put forward and that you and your colleagues just got done deciding on?
Sure. This was an important vote, I think, for D.C. and making sure that we can deliver the kind of services we need to deliver when it comes to emergency services. And we've had serious problems going back many years now with how ambulances operate, how we respond. The reality, though, is that FEMS, the Fire Emergency Management Services, has done, I think, a fairly good job. Kenya McDuffie, I think, the chairman of the committee, is on top of this and doing a great job. The new chief, Chief Dean, is also somebody who I have a lot of respect for. You know, he came into office about 6 months ago and said he was going to study things and see where he could improve them. And here is his first recommendation. Can we get more responses, more ambulances out there? Can we keep the maintenance of our ambulances up better if we went out to a third-party vendor? Is this the answer? I hope it's the answer. I hope it really helps a lot. But just in case, Kenya McDuffie, along with the help of Councilmember Che and others, went ahead and put a provision in that said in 1 year, the council's going to revisit this, think it through again, continue to work with the mayor, and make sure we get it right.
There was a community meeting held just recently on the future of RFK. Now, a big piece of the puzzle is outstanding because there's been talk, both from the city and I think one could say from the Washington football team, to have them, when their lease is over, presumably, or who knows, maybe before, move back to the city, maybe on a new stadium, maybe where RFK Stadium sits right now. Lots of uncertainties there, obviously. Hard to make plans around something so big that is so unresolved. But when you look at the site more broadly, acreage of parking that I don't think anyone foresees as being part of some reinvented RFK Stadium site, and you think about the community needs that could be served if the area was repurposed, lots of interest in that meeting. Do you have a vision for that site?
My vision goes back to when I actually worked with Councilmember Ambrose on that entire site, and we had basically continued under a small area plan the roads to go down to the river, to liven up the river and really make it a community again. I think we've gotten away from that a little bit. We need to get back to that conversation. As for the parking lots, I think they're just wasted land. I mean, if you've ever spent any time on the Anacostia River, it's a beautiful river. It's a place where we need to activate and not just go and park cars. So I'm not looking...
So many cities have done so much comparatively with their waterfront.
Exactly, and we're on the cusp of doing that, so I think we need to embrace that. You've seen it in other areas. As for the football team and the football stadium, I've supported soccer stadium, a big supporter of putting the soccer stadium. I supported and worked on the baseball stadium. I'm not sure that a football team or a football stadium is the best use for down there, and not sure I'll support them. But I know one thing. I definitely won't support them as long as their name is what it is right now. I think it's offensive. As you know, we've actually talked about this in the past.
David Grasso, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate so much your time. David Grasso is an independent at-large member of the District of Columbia Council. Good to have you here. We'll talk with you again.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Quick check of the hour's top stories that's coming straight ahead. Also, how long will this great weather last? Then, something rude that you have probably done with your cell phone.